Welcome to another episode of A Beer with Atlas. I'm Rich.
I'm Brian.
And to wrap up Mainstream May, we are going to go back to possibly the first. Can we call this one the first craft beer?
No.
You can't.
No.
No?
You can if you want.
Well, okay, so we'll get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Sierra Nevada's Pale Ale, 1979. Who would have thought? I know my dad wasn't drinking this back in 1979.
No.
I don't think anybody outside of California.
Yeah. If you lived in California, you could have been drinking this.
So, just completely off topic, what's the first craft beer then? In your opinion?
Probably Anchor Steam.
Okay, yeah.
San Francisco.
Yeah.
But that's like, turn of the century, 1900 when they were doing stuff. So
okay. Well, that was one of the, as I did some research here, and I've read Ken Grossman's book.
Oh, okay.
The guy one of the founders of Sierra Nevada, and that was one of his influences out there. Was Anchor Steam was one of his influences. I think they actually bought some equipment from Anchor Steam at one point.
Cool.
Too. So we'll get into this a little bit.
I'm gonna just eschew. How do you say that word? You know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna go without this glass today. We're just gonna go straight from the bottle.
I bought a whole 6-pack. So
I think that's what we're gonna do.
So there we go. Using my my Sierra Nevada Pale Ale bottle opener that you brought for us here too.
We are just brand conscious today. I'm wearing a hat.
You are.
I dug through my closet to find this thing.
We are on brand today with Sierra Nevada. So Sierra Nevada, founded in 1979 by Ken Grossman and Paul Camusi?
Yeah, sounds right.
Sure. Grossman eventually bought out his partner years later. They were both home brewers in Chico, California. The name comes from Grossman's love of hiking in the mountains. I thought that was interesting. They brewed their first ever batch of Sierra Nevada Pale Ale in 1980, and they sold 950 barrels that year. So not very many at all.
No.
It's their number one bestseller, has always been their number one bestseller. It's available in all 50 states. If you are at any respectable sports bar, I'm going to guess that they have this.
You can be at some unrespectable ones, too. They'll have it,
And
I
they'll
guarantee
have it.
Yeah. Also, there's I think 8 countries outside the United States that get this beer.
Wow.
They have it in Germany, and I know they have it in, I just read this, so I should remember. A place that you wouldn't think they'd have it. I'll find it in my notes.
Okay.
But, yeah, it's kind of all over the world now.
So, let's see. November 15th, 1980 was their first batch that they ever brewed. They dumped out the next 9 batches after that because it just wasn't to their standards.
That's interesting.
So I thought that was about $1,000 a piece. So 1980, at the cost of $1,000 a piece, so they blew $9,000 in 1980. I can only imagine what that is in today's dollars.
Yeah, that's dangerous to do, especially when you're just starting out. There's probably something inside that would say, we should probably just sell this anyway. You know what I mean?
You would think
when
so.
you're starting out, you'd be scared to dump that down. So
Yeah.
I guess that
Or at
a
least-
testament to what you think his first batch was.
At least give it to some, people around there to try it out or something. I don't know.
That's a lot of beer, though.
Don't waste it.
A whole batch.
Yeah, that's a lot.
They do that. Yeah, everybody's doing that now. If it's not good, it's down the drain.
I guess.
Start over.
So by 1987, they had distribution in 7 states. By 1988, they moved into a new 100-barrel brew house. 93, their production topped over 100,000 barrels by 98. So just 5 years later, 600,000 barrels. So 5 years later, 600,000 barrels.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That is a ton of beer.
Yeah.
I can't even fathom. With my limited knowledge of breweries right now, 600,000 barrels is unimaginable.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be just a mega complex in California. And now they have one in North Carolina as well.
In North Carolina. That North Carolina one, let's see where I wrote it down somewhere. There we go. January 2012, they opened a second brewing facility and restaurant in Mills River, North Carolina.
There must be something about North Carolina. And New Belgium has one there now. Oscar Blues, I think, has one there now. Just a good place to get your foot in to get that East Coast distribution. There must be something with their laws or something that's very... exciting for other places to come in and set up shop.
Or like a tax benefits or something.
Yeah,
like
there's
that.
got to be something that
Yeah.
is drawing them there, other than like Asheville,
Mm-hmm.
that city. That's kind of like they call that the Fort Collins of the East Coast.
Oh.
So there's beer culture there already to be for sure, but there's got to be something else besides that bringing these places there.
I thought this was interesting. By the year 2000, 57% of the firm's beer was sold in California. So almost 60% was sold strictly in California by 2000.
Yeah.
That's 20 years into production.
Did you think it would be less or more?
I thought it'd be less. I thought, let's see, 43% was purchased in the northern half of the state. So out of that 57%, 43%
and that
was
was
purchased
by 2000, you said?
by 2000.
Okay.
Yeah. The next closest was New York State with 3.4%, and then Nevada with 2.7%, and then Colorado with 2.6%. So it wasn't even close.
No.
I think that's crazy. But
Well, it just shows how entrenched they were in the state,
I guess.
and it started so early. It's one thing if you've had a beer and it's only been around for 5 years, right? But 15, 20 years, that's something your dad could have drank. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah.
you could have grown up. You've already got a generation of people that are used to having this around by then. So
True.
it's just probably something that is a favorite.
So 5.6% alcohol by volume. This is like, I want to try to describe the flavor a little bit.
Sure.
It's lighter than an IPA, but it's not the hoppiness that you would think
No.
necessarily.
Sometimes the IBUs on this can almost be close to an IPA.
Does it list it on there?
I don't know if it says IBU. Here's how I would describe it to people.
Okay.
And I saw this a while ago, and it makes kind of sense. It's like a mashup of an IPA and an amber. So you get some of the maltiness of an amber ale. You get some of the hop flavor and smell of an IPA, but it's not as strong.
No,
So it's
right.
always going to be around 5 or 6%. That's going to kind of max out. You'll get a little biscuity stuff or bready with the amber stuff, with the malted, or the caramelized malts, I guess I should say. And then you get the hop aroma and the hop flavor. So it's like a half step below or a Diet Coke version of an IPA. So it's like a training wheels to get to the IPA.
I think it's a really good explanation.
So if you like it, if you like this, then you'll like more of the West Coast style IPAs.
True.
Because this is basically where it came from. So
The maltier, not hazy, not
Yeah.
juicy, fruity.
yeah, this is a traditional style. I mean, this is who basically created the pale ale, the American pale ale, the APA, and that's the difference between just a straight pale ale and an American pale ale.
Interesting.
So the American pale ale, this one, does not. They don't add any sugar. There's no sugar added to this.
Okay.
Whereas in Britain, English styles, they add sugar. Like it's a little bit sweeter. It's not as hoppy, and that's the main difference between the American style.
And this was winning awards overseas. This is winning awards in Germany and Britain and
I read some articles, and two of them were about basically, one was about if you're just a beer nerd and you're hating on this, then you're wrong. And the other one was about like founders of other breweries saying how this, if they go to a restaurant, this is what they order because they know it's going to be good. So it's interesting you were talking about how they dump their batches.
Right.
Because that's one of the things with this. Everybody says it's so consistent. It has been consistent for so many years. And it's complex enough that people that are into beer, there's something there for you.
Yep.
But it's also so approachable that anybody starting out can try this style and enjoy it probably. Or at least you'll know right away whether you like it or not.
It's interesting how my palate has changed over the years because over at least the past couple of years. I tried this probably 3-ish years ago. I did not like it.
Yeah.
Didn't like it at all. Now you could drink this every day. I could drink this every day.
For sure. Yeah.
Super easy.
It's a fun style. It's one of those things that is still being made on a macro level. You know, a lot of big breweries make these. I wrote down a few. Boulevard, they've got a good pale ale. Oscar Blues, Founders, Deschutes, Sweetwater, which is down in Atlanta, Georgia area. They're one of the bigger breweries down there. Upslope in Colorado.
Yeah.
And Three Floyds makes two different pale ales. But a lot of mom and pops places aren't making pale ales.
Why is that?
Because I think they're going after people like me, like extreme beer people
Okay.
who want a milkshake double IPA with, cranberry juice added into it and
Yep.
aged on wine barrels. Like, that's what people that are at my level are going, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
this 10 years ago, this excites me, right?
Sure.
And I've come back around now to where this is exciting again because you just can't get it. You can't go to, I've never been to Cross Train and got a pale ale, American pale ale.
Straight pale ale.
If they made one, it would probably be more of a European or English style because that seems to be, like kind of Belgian takes on some of their stuff there. So
Yeah.
I have a feeling it would be more like that.
I think what's interesting is that you come back around, because I have sort of, in a very short amount of time, come back around to something like this, or to the more, because you're right. At first, I was all the way on one side. I wanted to try this as weird as possible. When I go to a brewery, like, what's the strangest thing that you got, or whatever. And now, give me the. I want the basics.
Yeah,
I've come back to what's your base IPA, what's your double IPA.
I think it seems kind of counterintuitive, but on the other hand, you can't know about the advanced stuff if you don't have your building blocks in place, right?
True.
You don't know if you don't know what this is, then you're not going to know what 5 steps down the road should be.
Sure.
Or can be. So I don't know. For me, it's just kind of fun. It's something that's always been around. Nebraska's had distribution for a long time. So I'm usually not looking for this. I'm looking for something brand new, whereas this is so good that you should just get it anyway.
It's consistent. Like, you could have it in your beer fridge, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. So, all right. Well, I want to get into your research a little bit, because I have a feeling mine probably crossed over into yours just a little.
Oh, we'll see. We'll see.
All right. Otherwise, we may have a whole lot of content on this one, and we may have to finish this whole 6-pack.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
All right.
All right. Well, I will start with just a little bit of something more on the pale ale stuff, just the brewing of it.
Okay.
Like I said, they're usually around 5%. This one uses Cascade hops.
Okay.
And most APAs will have that in the brew. It was the first hop that was introduced by the Department of Agriculture since like the Great Depression.
Okay.
So everything had been Budweiser, right? Like whatever you make to make a lager or a pilsner, that was the hops.
Okay.
This one finally gets approved by Department of Agriculture, DOA or whatever, and so now there's this new hop on the market that people can use, and it's citrusy, it's bitter. It's on the West Coast. It comes from the mountain range, and that's what it's named after, the Cascade Mountains. And because of that, a lot of the early pioneers that were making these beers got this to try with it. It's like a new toy for a brewer, Whereas now, there's so many new hop strains all the time. They don't even have names anymore. They just have numbers.
Numbered, right.
And so this was something that was new to them. When I read when this beer was made, there was only like 10 other craft breweries in America open. And one of them was Anchor, down the road in San Francisco. So those guys both used Cascade and both made IPAs and pale ales. Anchor made one in 1975 to celebrate Paul Revere's ride, 200-year anniversary of his ride.
They made a pale ale. Okay.
These guys were the first ones that I can find that distributed it, a pale ale.
Okay.
And they were able to distribute it themselves. California's laws, at least back then, they might still be the same, but they were able to go take it out.
Yep.
And they said, what I read was they didn't even have 6-pack holders, so they just had coolers with ice, and they just walked around and tried to sell them to bars to be like, okay, here, see what you think, try this, and if you like it, let us know.
That was, so after I read Jim Cook's book, the Jim Cook, Sam Adams, I read Ken Grossman's book, and same sort of path to distribution, I guess, where he had a cooler full of these beers, and he would take them around or whatever. And I thought what was fascinating about the whole thing, and I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit, is he was kind of a man's man. He taught himself how to weld. He taught himself he needed to figure out how to fix that refrigeration unit. Yeah. So instead of hiring somebody, he went and took refrigeration classes. Like, it's crazy that. So he would refit these old milk jugs as kegs, so to speak, and with the keg top on there. So he would weld his own kegs out of these milk jugs and take them with to these bars. And most of them would kick him out. Like, get the hell out of here. You're not if you're not Olympia or
Right.
or Pabst, then get out of here or whatever. But there were some that were open to it and would use his weird milk jug kegs early on.
Milk jug keg. Just sounds weird.
Milk
but,
jug keg.
I mean, you're talking shoestring budgets probably, and 1 or 2 people running the whole place.
Yeah.
You got to be able to, adapt. I went to a brewery. There was one in Cortland, Nebraska for 20 years. And none of the stuff in the brewery was actually made for brewing. It was
Really?
all salvaged from, like, making wine, making milk, like dairy stuff. Like, none of it was to make beer. And he made beer with it for, some almost 22
Wow.
years. Yeah, so it was kind of cool. So people that are usually into this are, like, a little bit creative and inventors and whatnot. They'll just fix things and make it happen.
Yeah.
I found that other country I was talking about. It's actually 17 countries, and you can get this at the Great Wall of China.
You can get Sierra Nevada Pale Ale at the Great Wall of China.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
That's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, from tiny Chico, California, to
Yep.
the Great Wall of China. So I thought that was interesting.
Milk jug kegs.
Some of those breweries I was talking about earlier, where they credit this beer, the guy's named David Walker, who was one of the co-founders of Firestone Walker. He had it in Silicon Valley at a sandwich shop, and he was like, "Oh, this is what a pale ale can be." He was from England, so he didn't know that it didn't have to be sweet, and kind of took that from there. And then I'm going to butcher this last name, almost like sometimes you do, but Vinny Saluzro,
Works for me.
founder of Russian River.
Oh.
He's credited with the creation of the double IPA. So nobody's made one except for him.
No kidding.
Yeah. Which I think is that Pliny? It's one of those Pliny beers. He credits this beer for giving him customers because people were starting to get used to hops in that area of California. So palates were changing and they were looking for this stuff. And he thinks because of that, he was able to actually be open and stay afloat for a while.
Which would explain Pliny the Elder then. If have you had Pliny the Elder? I assume.
Yeah.
So and I have too. It's probably one of the most hoppy beers I've ever had ever.
Yeah.
Not quite my palate, but I had to try it because it's legendary.
And that's how IPAs used to be. So we're seeing the evolution of these as they started out really hoppy, really bitter, and now they've come back down to where there's almost no bitterness.
Right.
And everything hop is at the dry hop level, so after the brew is done. But
Yep.
there's 1 pound of Cascade hops in every barrel of this, which is why it tastes that way and smells that way. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
But it doesn't affect the alcohol, the ABV. So they had to figure out how to do that. It cost 85 cents a bottle in 1981. So when they were out pitching them and trying to sell them, which was 2 to 3 times the cost of normal beer back then. So that's still a craft beer issue, is that it's expensive, really expensive, especially some of that stuff that you just can't get down the street. You're going to pay for it. And that's it's kind of like golf. It's like a rich man's game, I think. So is this craft beer world a little bit. Became the beer of the Grateful Dead parking lot party, pregame party. So
Grateful Dead?
They're from San Francisco. They got a big following there. So in all their shows, the Deadheads would follow them all around. Sure. And this was the local beer that they started to like. Has some smell similarities with what's known with the Deadheads.
Possibly.
So that might have helped a little.
Well, in previous episodes we've talked
It's
about.
the same,
right?
Basically comes from the same genus plant. So there's some tie-in there. Let's see. Also with foodies, which San Francisco is known as a great food town.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of chefs started getting to this and like pairing it with things because it was so different than what they were used to. So it was kind of where beer and food pairings started. Was this beer? It was complex to them. 2012, cans of this were introduced, started rolling out.
Okay.
And because you couldn't get in a can until then, and the reason was because they just wanted to make sure the quality was there. The quality control is a lot easier in a canning line than it is on a bottling line. So that's something that they did recently to keep that up. One of the things I thought was cool, and I did a little bit more research on this brewery than I normally do. It's because it was something I didn't know, and also I'd never heard of it, but it was really cool. 2010, they won the Green Business of the Year. So they were solar powered.
Okay.
They have a charging stations in their parking lot for like plug-in cars, They convert cooking oil from their restaurant to use as biodiesel in their trucks.
Interesting.
And let's see. Oh, there was another thing that was cool. It was 99.5% of all their waste is reused again.
Oh.
Spent grain goes to a farm. The water that they use, they have their own water treatment place on site.
Wow.
So they're taking care of all that stuff. Let's see. Oh, in 2009, they hired a company that figured out how to use yeast that they pitched already and used, and they turned that into gas, like diesel, high-end diesel.
Okay.
And let's see. That's when they got their water treatment thing in. And then they own 2 miles of railroad track that's right by the brewery.
Really?
And they ship most all their grain by train because it's cleaner than trucks.
Huh.
So one train car is equal to 4 semi truckloads of grain. So all their grain ships in on rail car and train tracks that they own.
Interesting.
And then I read this, and this is the part I didn't know about, and I never heard of this designation, but it's something called LEED, LEED.
Okay.
And it means leadership in energy and environmental design. So it's like something you can get all over. All sorts of businesses can have it. Houses can have this designation, I learned. Dolan seems to know about LEED.
Yeah, the biggest building in Omaha to be LEED certified is actually Ameritrade.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right across the street from us over
Energy saving, and actually all the Metro Community College campuses are moving that way too. The North Campus is already there.
So there's 4 levels.
Okay.
What you do is you get points, and then these points turn into your classification level.
Okay.
And you have to do certain things that are on their list to do to like get these points throughout the build.
Okay.
Or like you're retrofitting something or whatever. So they have all these standards, and then if you hit all these checklists boxes, you get X points for each one of those things. And at the end of the thing, when the business is open or the building or your house or whatever, then you add them all up and you see your level. Certified is the lowest.
Okay.
Silver, gold, platinum. They are platinum certified in North Carolina, their new one.
Okay.
It's the only brewery in the United States that's certified platinum.
Okay.
So it's basically 100% self-sufficient. All their waste goes back into they have no footprint, basically.
Gotcha.
And that's the only one in the United States to do that. I went to a brewery in North Carolina, a real tiny one, and they were the first one in the United States to use wind power.
Oh.
But I don't think, obviously, they're not platinum level LEED certified, which was something I'd never heard of until today.
I look at our Atlas brothers in D.C., Atlas Brewing Company. They are solar powered. So I wonder where that kind of falls into place.
That would get you some points.
Okay.
know. So it depends on how far you want to go. It's obviously a passion for this guy and this company. They clean 1,000 miles a year of hiking trails. They upkeep, so we have around here like highway patrol cleanup and whatever. Businesses can do that. They do out there in the mountains 1,000 miles every year. They're in charge of. And then you get some discounts and stuff if you can show, like, hey, my group does X miles or whatever. You can get discounts and stuff like that.
Right on.
$25 will get you the Beer Geek tour at this place. Otherwise, it's free. So if you really want to get nerdy with it, which I would probably suggest, something like this.
$25.
You're not going to probably see something like that again.
Sure.
So I would do it. If I was there, I'd go.
I'd do that. Yeah.
Let's see. What was something else that was interesting about the beer? And then we'll get into some Chico stuff. I looked on their website because I bought that bottle opener, and I wanted to see what else branded pale ale things they had. So I picked out a few of the, strangest ones or
awesome,
most unique. They have a stainless steel spork that has pale ales here.
Yes.
For camping, because it's a big camping area.
Yeah.
So you've got your spoon and your fork and a bottle opener all in one.
On the other side, okay.
They have what they call crocheted pocket discs, which is basically a felt Frisbee that folds out and then you can play Frisbee wherever, and it packs up so nice.
California.
It's not plastic.
Sure.
They make mustard.
Mustard. Which you hate.
I despise it, but they have two different kinds. They have a glass bottle and a squeeze bottle, and they have different beer-flavored mustards.
Would you eat a beer-flavored mustard?
No.
Are you sure?
I would eat a beer, but not a mustard. No mustard. No mustard touches these lips.
For whatever reason, Dolan thinks that's super funny.
Well,
I don't understand.
I hate it.
I'm going to get you some beer-flavored mustard, and we're going to try it.
Just keep it. I'm not touching that stuff. They also have barbecue sauce. That I would get into. They had different flavors of barbecue sauce.
Okay.
Lip balm.
Which I've had.
I've had that too. And they had a hammock.
Oh.
It was $100, like a camping hammock that had their logo on it.
Sure.
And then there's a book like about the brewery.
Okay.
Like the history of the brewery, which was cool. I thought it'd be interesting to see that. So
I think if you have any interest whatsoever in brewing or beer, or maybe just even before I knew about this kind of culture and I got really deep into it, I would highly suggest Ken Grossman's book. Like it really, really goes into not only the history of maybe him and the brewery and brewing and the kind of the trials and tribulations of opening a business, much less a brewery. I mean, it goes beyond that, and problems that he had with his business partner and employees, and like it was absolutely acceptable in California in 1980 for his employees to take a smoke break. They weren't smoking cigarettes though.
Yeah.
And then the afternoon was shot. Right?
Productivity declined.
Right. And so, I mean, that led to, there was, at one point...
I think that happened at Stone, too, by the way.
Did it?
Which is why they have the Waldo's special. That's a tie-in to that. But yeah, that's a different story for a different day.
That was fascinating. It got to the point with him, though, that I remember this in particular, because it's close to what I do kind of every day here at Atlas, outside of this and the other fun stuff that we do. On the business side, by like 2000, it was like 98, 99, they were operating on 2% margins, which is horrible.
Yeah.
I don't even understand how you can keep a business open on a 2% margin. And from there it got better.
Yeah.
But and there were a number of reasons for that or whatever. And as you read his book, you kind of understood. But yeah, it was fascinating.
So are they like the West Coast Sam Adams?
Pretty much.
Is that how you would describe it?
Yeah, and I think there's a weird... I don't know how they feel about each other now. Back in the day, kind of back maybe in the early 2000s, they were being compared. Grossman and Cook were being compared to each other, right? Rightly so. I think it's a fair comparison. The two of them did not like each other very much, and I think to this day they still maybe don't see eye to eye.
Interesting.
But maybe that's a more West Coast East Coast thing.
Could be.
Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
Tupac, Biggie, I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that's probably where it stemmed from.
Maybe. It's trying to drop some...
when the Brooklyn
music.
Dodgers moved to L.A., maybe it's even
Right.
farther back. Who knows?
There you go.
Who knows?
See me trying to drop some music knowledge on the two of you?
I got a little coming, don't worry.
Just a little. Okay.
I got a little.
Interesting. But at 2%, like, that's crazy. It's almost non-existent.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're operating in the red for so long. How... You can't survive like that from a business standpoint.
I wonder how they did. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a lot of just they ingenuity on their end. They weren't necessarily spending money on the dumb shit that companies spend money on sometimes, right? So
smart enough to pull back on some of that and
correct, or never do it in the first place. Like that was,
I guess,
that was never
makes sense,
his style.
Be interesting to show, like, I don't know if it'd be a web series or whatever, but just like short documentaries about the founders of like some of these breweries. Because like Founders has their, we watched, I know you and I have both watched those.
Right.
Wouldn't that be cool just to get a little business, of the mindset of those people that have done these, especially some of these ones that have been around 30 years that started out so small.
Right.
And now are the biggest ones in the country. I think it would be interesting to pick their brains.
I would love that.
Speaking of brains, holy cow. Look at this segue, guys.
Good job.
Chico, California. I thought, you know what? I've never heard of Chico. Never, not once, except for this. I don't know anything about it.
Yep.
So I wanted to look and see where is it? What is it about? Who comes from there?
Okay.
So what I did find was a lot of poets, sculptors, artists, authors, come from Chico.
Okay.
So there's not anybody real famous that you and I would know, but there seems to be a thriving community for that. And then the other thing that seemed to be what everybody else was, if you weren't one of those things, then you were a Republican candidate or senator, or you were a speechwriter or something like that. So it seemed to be conservative politically, but also open to the arts in a way.
It's
kind of an interesting mix of folks. Yeah. So I went through and I just got a couple of names that we'll talk about. Chico is nicknamed is the city of trees. So they have a ton of trees in this area. They have something called the Silver Dollar Speedway, which I think would be fun to check out. It's like a dirt track for BMX, mountain bike racing, monster trucks. So it's like something that's always there, and you can go check out these things all the time.
Interesting.
The average temperature low, 55 to 65.
All right.
And in the summer, it's 85 to 95.
That sounds beautiful.
Yeah, not too shabby. And they have probably what Dolan's going to be most excited about, the world's largest yo-yo.
Oh, no. Look at
Why do you have this? What is this from? Is this where he's from?
Aaron Rodgers was born in Chico, California.
You know what's
That's
weird?
where he's from.
He didn't make the list at all. He wasn't on there, not one bit.
Why does that look like you carry it around in your wallet?
Oh, he does. He does have that in his wallet.
That's weird.
That is weird.
I actually found it last weekend, and I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. So I stuck it in my wallet, forgot it was there until now when you mentioned Chico, California.
I think he's got his photograph photoshopped in the back with Aaron Rodgers on it.
That's true. Do you have a picture of your fiance in your wallet?
No.
Nope.
Nope, but he's got a picture of Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, well, priorities.
Yeah.
And look at what this is. Green and yellow, Dolan. Look at the colors.
This should be
It
your
was
favorite
meant to
beer
be.
right here.
If they made it in Green Bay, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's some of the names. So some of these you're going to know, some of them you won't, but they're at least interesting enough that we're going to talk about them.
That aren't Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's the first music tie-in. This gal's name is Ashley Everett, and I had never heard of her.
Okay.
But I know I've seen her. And you know why I've seen her? She is the dance squad captain for Beyonce. So all of Beyonce's dancers are learning the moves from this girl.
Wow.
So she's from Chico.
So she's one hell of a dancer.
Yes.
Okay.
Because that's one of the things you know about her, about Beyonce. She's
Yes.
always dancing, and yeah, they've got the dancers. So
Yes.
she's in charge of those.
Interesting.
There's a musician named Matt Carney that's from this town.
Okay.
I added up his top 10 songs on Spotify, and he's got 136 million plays, so not too shabby.
Yeah.
It's like 136 million more than I have.
I'm sad that I don't know that name.
He was an acoustic-y singer-songwriter in the early 2000s, and he's kind of changed his sound and gone a little bit more electronic recently, and that's when most of his success has been. But he was probably in Omaha about 2 months ago or so for a show. Then there is, these are fun. The most famous one, I'll just get out of the way. His name is Jackson Pollock. It's not Aaron Rodgers. It's Jackson Pollock.
Yeah.
Abstract painter. Overall, just crazy guy. It sounds like there's a movie about him.
With some crazy paintings.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he had the. If you don't know who it is, he's basically like the paint splatter guy, where it looks like he just got paint on his brush and dripped it on there and called it good, and like I feel like anybody can do that.
And people just peed their pants over it. Yeah.
And then, like his actual paintings that when they sell are in millions and millions of dollar range.
Yes.
And it looks like something my son would do. But apparently there's some method to the madness that I don't. My brain doesn't work that way. I don't understand it.
Art people would try to explain it to you. I
Yeah.
don't.
I mean, I'd be willing to learn, but from what I see, it don't look like anything to me.
Yeah.
Let's see here. This one's for you, because I'm going to guess Dolan doesn't know this. You're not going to know the name, but you're
Okay.
going to know the guy.
Okay.
His name is Donovan Scott.
Don't know the name.
His most famous character, at least for me, growing up in the 80s,
Okay.
was a guy named Leslie Barbara. Officer Leslie Barbara from the Police Academy movie.
Yeah.
He was the kind of the chunkier guy.
Yep.
He was in that movie, and then he was in I wrote down. There was another movie that was kind of famous. He did like some sequels,
Okay.
like 80 sequels. So it would be like Teen Wolf 2 or something like that. So he didn't hit first.
Is he he was like the dad or whatever in Teen Wolf
something
2
like
and
that.
stuff like that?
There's another one, Back to the Future 3. He's in. He's like a sheriff or something. So he must have been with
Robert
Biff's.
Zemeckis
He must have been with Biff's gang.
Oh, gotcha.
Something like that.
I understand. Okay.
And then now he seems to be typecast on purpose as Santa.
Oh.
So he's gotten older. In any sort of Lifetime movie, it looks like he is the Santa Claus. Any of those Christmas Lifetime movies,
Sure.
this guy has it on lock.
He's the Santa.
Donovan Scott is Santa.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you see a Santa on Lifetime, it's probably this guy.
That's that
It's
dude.
probably the dude from Police Academy.
From Police Academy. All right.
Yeah. And then the last name I have for you is another one you won't know, but you'll know the person. Her name is Diana Sowle, Sowle.
Mm-hmm.
She was in exactly 3 movies in her career,
Okay.
but man, was she a part of my childhood. And she's a part of my son's childhood right now, too. Her character in 1971 was named Mrs. Bucket.
No.
Ring any bells?
No.
Dolan?
No.
It would be Charlie Bucket's mom from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Really?
She's the one that sings "Cheer Up, Charlie." She's working at the laundry, not the laundromat, but the laundry tubs. You know, she's washing them hand style. That's in 1971.
Okay.
The next movie credit I find for her, 1994.
Whoa.
Clear and Present Danger.
What?
Clint Eastwood. Is that who's in that?
Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford.
Clint. Did he direct that?
Clint Eastwood. Oh, did Clint Eastwood direct it?
I think so.
I know Harrison Ford was in
Harrison
it.
Ford was in it for sure, but she's in that movie. And she's in one other movie as a hairdresser that year. And then that's it. She's done with movies. And then, this makes no sense to me, in 2008, she shows up as 9 different voices in Fallout 3 video game.
What?
Yeah.
What?
So 20 years different, 23 years between movies. 14 years later, voice acting for one video game, 9 different voices.
What?
And that's it. That's her whole record. Her husband was in the CIA. So they moved to Germany, which I think is where a lot of Willy Wonka was shot. So it might have been how she got the part.
Okay.
And then she lived over there for a while. And then they had a house like in D.C. when they would come to visit, for work for when they'd be in town.
Sure.
But I couldn't find out where she was or why she didn't do anything. Maybe she was raising a family or something for 20-something years. But she also was a big proponent of tutoring kids. So she had like a after school teach kids program that was free. So if you were like kind of a poor kid that needs help, she was ran this tutoring business on the side, and people could come and they would for free they could get help with homework and whatnot in DC.
So, that's weird.
Yeah. And then she passed away, but the last thing that she did was Fallout 3. I wonder how she got that. I want to know more about her.
Right.
Where did she go?
Why?
What was she doing?
Why?
How did you get this?
Right. Was she just the cheapest voice on the market for them
I
at
don't
the
know.
time?
But
okay.
why? I mean, usually when you're a voice actor, you do it a lot of it.
All the time.
Yeah, so one game, 9 voices I counted.
9 different. They're like, hey, we need old lady voice. Could we?
Looked like there was 3 or 4 different old lady voices and some girl voices, some younger people. Yeah, it was all female voices.
What?
I've never played the game, so I don't know. But
Dolan, you ever play Fallout 3? No.
yeah, so that's what I got about Chico.
That is weird.
Yeah.
So my question is
Is it about Aaron Rodgers?
No, but Aaron Rodgers led me to this thought because a while back he was doing a fundraiser sending money back home because of the fires that was going on in Chico, California.
Correct. Yes.
Do you guys know if the brewery at all was affected or how they
Were they the ones
distribution?
That was the one that we did the podcast for
With
early.
Cross-Train.
Yeah, with
Oh,
Cross-Train.
that's right.
So
That's
they're
right.
the ones that started
The resilience.
the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Cool.
Which is interesting because there's a reverence for Ken Grossman in the craft beer industry.
Yeah.
And Scott actually, when we were out there recording, Scott mentioned it. Grossman, and he said it. He's like, Grossman put out the word, and everybody came to help.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
It's like one of the godfathers of the craft beer world, apparently.
Right.
Sounds like.
That dude talks and people listen, kind of thing.
So what's real quick? What's your story with this? Where was? Do you remember the first time you had one?
So it was after I read his book. I thought, okay, and I didn't start with pale ale. I started with their Goza, with the Ultravez.
Oh, okay.
So
it's recently,
just very
Yeah,
recently,
okay.
yeah. And they've changed which to my chagrin, they've changed the recipe on that. It's still good. It's still very good. It went from a kind of it's way more limey now than it was before. Before it was like a good standard goza. It was not very salty. It was salty, like you taste the coriander. It was very refreshing on a hot day. Where now it's maybe more tequila lime based kind of that kind of flavor.
Yeah.
And that led me into others. Torpedo, I've had that one before, which I know is a popular one of theirs.
Yeah.
Bigfoot I've had, which is their barley wine. Not a huge fan of it, but yeah, all right. I think the one thing that comes back to me with these is consistency. Every time I have that Otravez, every time I have that, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
There is a consistent flavor every single time. I could see that in this. I think I could see that in Torpedo. There was another one called Sidecar. Was it Sidecar? That was the orange-ish one. I can't remember. Maybe that wasn't the orange one. Anyway, same sort of thing. Same consistent flavor.
A really good wheat. It's called a Kellerweiss. They have a stout that's pretty good. Every year at Christmas, they do a celebration IPA, which is a different hop combination every year. So that's one I always have to get a 6-pack of. I saw this on the internet, and it rang true to me. They're like one of those bands that got big and didn't suck, is how they described them.
So not
like,
Metallica?
So it's like, I remember them when I was at a tiny club and saw them, and now they're huge, and they suck now. One of those deals, which everybody has a band like that, I suppose. But they said this is one of those breweries that did that didn't suck. Like, they're still so consistent and so good. And people, at least I know for sure I do, take them for granted.
Well, I think part of it too is
the price point is crazy good. It's like $9.99 for the most expensive 6-pack.
This was $8.99 for a 6-pack. So $8.99 for a 6-pack of craft beer is
that is going to be good.
Absolutely.
That's the thing, because when you and I are doing this, we don't know most of the time what we're getting.
No,
especially if it's something new, you don't know if it's going to be good.
And I don't want to buy 6 of them.
Yeah. So now this is one of those things where it's going to be good. It's well worth the price. I need to get back to these guys.
You need to read his book. I think that's, if you haven't yet, you need to read his book. Just from a business standpoint, I learned a lot. And I say this a lot, and it sounds weird or maybe amateurish, but I think the more I say it and the more I talk about it, it doesn't. Like, I don't have a college degree, so everything I've learned in business, I've either learned on the job or I've learned from stuff I've read or watched. So a lot of my classroom work, so to speak, and I use the air quotes for classroom work, is stuff that I've read. So Jim Cook's book and Ken Grossman's book and stuff that I've watched on TV, Shark Tank and The Prophet, shows like that. Well, Bar Rescue, I watched that a lot. Just learning basics that I would have learned probably in a classroom setting,
right?
But I didn't have to pay for necessarily. Like, where am I going to get that right now? I'm going to go get it on YouTube, or I'm going to get it from a book. Or
do you feel, is it true business is business? So brewing beer translates to what we're doing and that sort of thing? Like
absolutely.
Just running it in the right way?
Yeah, and I think that speaks to the scale of Sierra Nevada. Like, how could they scale on a shoestring budget and still be $8.99 a 6-pack in 2019 and have distribution in all 50 states?
Yeah.
Quality. I think it comes back to they've never, ever compromised on who they are or what they do. Ken Grossman has never compromised on his vision whatsoever. It goes back to dumping the first 9 barrels, right? He's never compromised on that at all, and he's still involved in the day-to-day operations, even though it's, I saw he was worth like $600 million or something crazy now.
Dang.
Like, yeah. From a dude that was just, he was working 2 jobs and going to night school to learn refrigeration because he didn't want to pay some guy to come and fix their refrigeration unit for their kegs.
That's cool.
Wow.
They were one of the very first people to bottle condition beers. And so that means that you had to ship them cold.
Talk about that, because that's interesting that
Well, I mean, the easiest way to just say it basically is that it's still a live beer. When they're done with it, it's not done. So they cap it up. Sometimes you'll see them, especially in like sours and stuff, they'll add a little extra sugar right at the end, cap it up. So that still has, yeast is going to continue to eat that for a while. So the beer is going to be different when you open it than versus when they closed it, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So they were one of the first ones to kind of do that, especially with this sort of beer, which in turn means you have to always keep it cold because it has a chance, if it gets warm, that yeast will activate and basically blow up. Aaron Daly he showed me a crowler yesterday, and it said on the sticker on it, keep refrigerated, live beer inside, can explode. I'd never seen that before, but apparently somebody hadn't, left it in their car or whatever, and it blew up, and that's a mess.
Yeah.
So they were one of the first ones that basically made their beers had to be refrigerated, had to be shipped refrigerated. And that's really changed the game of beer.
Is that a difference between bottling and canning then too? Or can you do it in cans?
You can. I mean, that's basically what a crowler is, just a big can.
Okay.
So you can do it. You see it more in bottles than you do, at least commercially. Small mom and pop people are always doing that. I mean, most of the things that we're seeing is that way with crowlers and whatnot. But yeah, they were the first one to do it like on a major scale.
It's interesting that you'd asked about, is business, because one of the things I wrote down that I not only took from his book, but then has been repeated a few times in articles that I read. He said industry experts predicted there would be 2 craft breweries left by the year 2000. And I assume he means him and Sam Adams.
Yeah.
Beer had become a commodity like milk. You don't go shopping for a brand of milk, you just buy the product. And so that was kind of his motivation, was to get that consistency was, if that's the case, he was going to be one of those 2.
What's funny is that didn't turn out to be the case.
No.
Because now there's like 30 kinds of milk.
Yep.
And there's a million kinds of beer, and you do shop for those things,
And there's
people
still,
are brand loyal to milk. It's crazy, but it's true.
But there's still a very large chunk of the cooler section that is dedicated to Sierra Nevada, wherever you go.
Yeah, wherever you go, you can get it. And probably a lot of different kinds, which is one of the fun things about them.
In your research, did you find out how many beers do they have on tap at the brewery itself?
I didn't look at the brewery at all. I've never been there. I'd like to go. I think just off the top of my head, I was looking at my Untapped. I've had 17 or 18 different Sierra Nevada beers. They have like 4 or 5 different kinds of IPA. They have barrel-aged stouts, regular stouts. I've never seen them do like a sour. Otravez is probably closest.
It's probably the closest they get.
Stouts, IPAs, wheat beer, porters. Anything that's a beer, like where we would say like entry level or just the base of this kind of beer, they have one, and it's pretty solid. So they've covered all the bases. They do enough different stuff where beer nerds can be excited. It's the Bigfoot one you talked about, the barley wine. I went to the Casual Pint maybe 2 months ago, and they had an event there, and they had like the last 5 or 6 years worth of Bigfoots on tap. So you could try the difference of them. They had a keg that was like 7 years old. Whoa. It was like one of like 4 in the United States. The IPA that comes out at Christmas is an annual thing. They have enough things that are always happening that keeps people interested. They want to try this year's version. So people like me, I'm still buying their beer to do those things, but I definitely have forgotten, just how good the standard stuff can be too.
Just the classic consistency of pale ale.
Yep.
Was it you or Daly that brought me the Bigfoot from this year?
That might have been him.
See, because either one of you, I wouldn't be surprised that. I don't think surprise is the right word. That there's a longevity to Sierra Nevada, but then there are beer nerds like yourself and Daly who are just way more over the top than I am.
Yeah.
But then you still come back to something like Bigfoot.
I can tell you, they have a beer called Narwhal, which is their barrel-aged stout, and it's one of my favorites. I get it every year. I get Bigfoot every year. I get the Celebration IPA every year. So it's those ones that are further off the normal menu.
Yep.
Is what pulls me in. But then if you go to the restaurant or you go anywhere, really, you're going to be able to find this. Gas station.
Yeah.
That's there. So there's no shame in this game for sure for me.
Not one bit. So finally we'll go to the Untapped. You have checked in on this just one time, which is surprising.
Well, usually I had been for a long time. Just if I checked it in once, that was good enough. That's how my mentality had been.
Well, no.
But then if it's changed, then I'm going to guess I've probably checked in 4 or 5 times is my guess.
I take that back. You've checked in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. 5 times. I'm sorry, 5 times.
Yeah. So I'm going to check into it again today. because I was probably at different places doing different things. But
The first time was 8 years ago.
dang,
4.25.
yeah.
And then
Was I in Vegas?
It doesn't say.
Because the first time I really remember drinking this was in Vegas.
Let's go back and look. It doesn't say. It doesn't have you
okay.
tagged. You did earn the Mary Brewmas badge for
Yeah.
yeah
you
December
go.
24th. Oh, you drank this on Christmas Eve.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Must have been at a party or something.
could be. I was
and
waiting for
then
Santa.
Just a few months later, in 2012, you ranked it at 4.25. Then just 2 months later, you ranked it again at 4.25. Then in August of 2012, 4.25.
Yeah.
We drank a lot of this in 2012.
Well, I mean, that was 7 years ago.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot. There wasn't like it was now, choice-wise.
4 years later, then you dropped down to a 4.
Yeah, that's me changing my palate.
But then 2 years later, January 26, 2018,
Yeah.
so just over a year ago, you ranked it a 4.5.
Ooh.
So
Yeah, my ratings are all over the board, but usually it has something to do with what I'm doing or where I'm at or who I'm with. So,
interesting.
but yeah,
Oh,
for sure.
And this is funny. You were at the casino when you took this.
Oh, that was in Vegas.
You were in Vegas. Look at that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I love Untapped.
At the MGM Grand Hollywood Theater box office.
Yep.
What a fun memory. That's cool.
You know what? I can tell you exactly where I was drinking that beer. That was last year.
Yeah.
In January.
Yeah, January last
So
year.
I was there, and that was the day that I had got up about 4:00 in the morning, and me and my friend Mark, who I was with, we were celebrating his birthday, and there was a conference in town,
Okay.
like a convention.
Yeah.
Dolan will know this by the initials. It was AVN, the Adult Video Network or whatever. It was their annual convention. Was also in town.
Oh, I thought you were there for the convention.
It was a happy circumstance that we were there at the same time. But that was early in the morning. That beer was early in the morning. If you look at the time frame, I bet it was pretty early.
It was early, yeah.
So we were sitting there at the bar at MGM. We're talking to the bartender, and he's like, hey, you guys, if you're out and about later tonight, you definitely want to go to the Hard Rock because that's where it's popping. You got to get down there. All these girls are there. Everybody's there. It's a show. It's basically like the Oscars of the porn awards.
Yes.
And it's everybody wants to be seen. All of Vegas was there. All the people that live in Vegas got dressed up to go to this. It's a huge party.
Okay.
So we're at MGM. I'm drinking a pale ale. They had it on tap there, and they had it in bottles. So I got the bottle. And that was the day I decided tickets went on sale for Billy Joel
Okay.
at Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City. And I'd never seen him in a stadium like that. He'd only played Shea Stadium. That was where he was famous for playing, the baseball stadium.
Right.
And this was the first concert at Kauffman Stadium in 40 years.
Wow.
So bolstered by a few pale ales, I pulled the trigger on $300 seat tickets at Vegas at like 9 in the morning.
All right.
So bad decision, great time, and that's why I got a 4.5. And I can remember most of those things.
How'd your wife feel about that purchase?
She wasn't totally happy about it, but it wasn't the first nor the last time. We had that discussion this weekend actually.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So there's my Sierra Nevada Pale Ale story.
That was my first check-in on this one. So 4.25, I think, is a very fair. It's that there's a solid consistency to this. That
yeah, it's just easy drinking and good.
Yeah. So if you are out and you're not an IPA fan,
Yeah.
this could be that kind of halfway in between safe beer for you. I think it's definitely worth a try. Most, like Brian has said before, most places will give you a little taster. You can try it or whatever. Most bartenders are more than happy to help you with that. So, or if you're out at a brewery and they have just a standard pale ale, give it a shot. It's
Pale ale or American Pale Ale. See the differences if you can.
yeah, you won't be disappointed. So that wraps up Mainstream May. I had a lot of fun. It wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be.
It was like a memory lane situation.
It was.
'Cause a lot of those beers were things I used to do or my dad used to do, and so we had a good time, I think.
I went back and listened to the dad beers, which I listened to all of them anyway. Just that's the only way I think I get better is if I listen.
Yeah.
And man, that made me. There's some parts that made me sad.
Yeah,
About that.
I feel the same way, but I also think that got our most comments. At least on Facebook, we had
did.
like 45 people talking about what beers their dad drank, and
I love that.
I love it. It was so much fun.
And I carried over something. I bring that up only because I carried it over. And normally I say, at the end of the episode, I say, okay, we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
I want to change that a little bit because there's something that your dad said.
Oh.
After he came back from it was your story about when his truck got flooded.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, I'm not going anywhere for a while. Let's have a beer."
Let's have another one. Yep.
I want to end our shows now with, "I'm not going anywhere for a while. Let's have another beer."
Oh yeah, I'm gonna probably cry a little bit, Rich, but you know what?
Let's do it. Pops there. So, all right, Brian.
Yeah.
We're not going anywhere for a while, so
Let's have another one.
let's have another one.